Our creative culture, all the books, movies, magazines, television shows, music, video games, publications, visual arts, dance, performance art, all the creative output from all the artists across all the disciplines. Today, what I want to try to do is change the way we think and feel about our creative culture and the way our country feels about our creative culture. Because the best way for us to change our culture and to make it better is to change the way we feel about it, the way we think about it and talk about it, the way we frame it. Now, there's a lot of conversation in the media about the culture wars, as if they have anything at all to do with culture. What I want to talk about today is the real culture war. Now, the real culture war is the war to think about our culture and create it. And I'm going to do that by telling you 3 stories and unmasking 3 lies. But first I want to give a little bit of historical context, which is about how things change in our society. And if you look back at the civil rights movement, or the organic food movement, or the anti-smoking movement, it tells you that our society does change, but it takes a generation for that change to happen. And when that change began, the agents of change were smaller than the number of people in this room today, and everybody thought that they were crazy. So if I'm successful today, and you may think I'm crazy right now trying to change the way our country thinks about culture, but if I'm successful today, you will walk out of here and you too will spread the word and try to change the way people feel about culture, and people will think that you're crazy too, and that's okay. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start with the first story. First story is, let me set the scene. It's Super Bowl Sunday, February 1st, 2004. We're in Houston. Panthers versus the Patriots at halftime. The Patriots are up 14-10. It's going to be a fantastic show. There's going to be entertainment at halftime. Everybody's ready for the big halftime show. And then, So I think Bill O'Reilly kind of nailed the mood of the country on that day. He said, Janet Jackson's sleazy halftime performance symbolizes the debasement that has befallen American culture. But far from being outraged, I'm glad Biz Jackson and the Timberlake Kid did what they did. Now, there is nowhere for the purveyors of crude to hide. Perhaps now Americans will face the facts. Our popular culture has collapsed. But you know, there was something that wasn't discussed at all at that time. Something that wasn't asked about. And this void in our discussion tells us more about the way we feel about culture than all the discussion about debasement and sleaze. What question wasn't asked? What didn't we talk about? How was the song? In fact, can any of you even remember what song she was singing? Second story. How do we know if something is good? How do we know if the song that she was singing was good? Well, on December 18th, 2009, Avatar opens and immediately becomes the #1 movie in America. And then it becomes the #1 movie in the world. And on January 26th, 2010, Avatar becomes the #1 movie of all time. But why is it the #1 movie of all time? How do we get that? Well, we get it because we operate by this equation. Money equals good. But money doesn't really equal good, does it? Money equals money. Good. Well, good equals something else. We feel it. We feel it in the same way that we feel how to move to a beat when we dance, how to clap our hands to the beat of a song. We have allowed financial success to substitute for our aesthetic judgment. And part of this is that I'm going to say things that we all kind of know, but we don't talk about too much. And part of what I'm going to say is also about the vulnerabilities that we feel. And the reason we allow financial success to substitute for our aesthetic judgment is because it means that we don't have to be vulnerable, because financials are objective. We can look them up online, we can check them out, but aesthetic judgment, the way we feel about something, well, we have to show our vulnerability. We have to see how other people react to us. We might be wrong. Okay, here's a test. Did you guys like Avatar? And the test was, what did you do before you thought about how you answered that question? Did you think about, well, who's asking you the question, or what room am I in, and how will the person next to me think if I say yes or no? And that vulnerability that we feel when we express the way we feel about some art, some culture, is related to the same vulnerability that artists feel. One of the favorite things that I do when I meet people is I ask, are you an artist? And generally the conversation goes like this. I say, are you an artist? And generally the other person blushes because he or she knows that being an artist is a compliment. Being an artist is a really great thing. And then they say, well, I paint and I do some graphic design, but I don't really sell anything and I don't make any money at it. I'm an administrative assistant. Well, I'm prepared to call that person an artist. And we all need to be prepared to call that person an artist also. Because that person has somehow internalized the equation of money equals good. In that case, the equation is, I'm not making money at my art, therefore I'm not a valid artist. But that's not true. That's not the way it works. Let me tell you another sort of scary thing about the Avatar story. Avatar is an influential movie. That's great. It deserves to be influential, especially in the way that James Cameron pioneered new technology. But the reason it's influential is because it earned its place in the influence panoply. If Avatar had not made any money, then no emerging filmmaker would have the right to point to it and say, I was influenced by Avatar. If Avatar had made as much money as this movie, The Girl on the Train, which opened the same weekend that Avatar became the #1 movie of all time, well, if Avatar had made as much money as this movie, Avatar would not be able to influence other movies. By the way, Girl on the Train is a very good movie. It innovates in the way it deals with creativity and character and the way it explores narrative, but because it didn't make money, it doesn't earn the right to influence. Now, let me be very clear. The entertainment business is a business. I'm not saying it's not a business, but what I am saying is that business success is not the same as creative success. Third story. Let me set the stage. It's May 21st, 1998, 7:45 on an overcast morning, Springfield, Oregon. This 15-year-old boy named Kip Kinkle walks into the cafeteria at Thurston High School and opens fire. 22 wounded, 2 dead. Now, I have a friend who's a playwright. His name is Bill Mastrosimone, and Bill wrote a play about school violence just a moment before this incident happened. It kind of eerily foreshadowed that incident. He called the play Bang Bang You're Dead. And he wrote it by teens for teens to perform because he realized that the legal community and the psychiatric community had not been able to solve the issue of teen violence, and he wanted, as an artist, to give teens a tool, a cultural tool, to work it through themselves. And he wrote it with no props, no sets, so they can do it anywhere. In a theater like this one, in a rec room, in a community room, or in somebody's living room. And Bill sent me the play and we worked on it together. Now, Bill reached out to Thurston High School and he made a relationship with Michael Fisher, who was the drama teacher there. And Michael agreed to direct the first production of the play. And in April 1998, we premiered this play in the center of the community center in Eugene, Oregon. The actors in the play were the drama students from Thurston High School, and they had a special connection to this. I'm sorry, I get emotional every time I talk about this because many of them witnessed the shooting and some of them were injured because that morning, on May 21st, 1998, they were doing what drama students always do, theater students. They were at the same table in the cafeteria, and that's where a lot of the bullets went. The night that we decided to premiere the show, we came to the theater and there was a line around the block, and somehow word had gotten out. And people had come from as far away as Alaska and Arkansas and Kentucky. People who had been involved in school shootings, students and their parents. And they came out to support this performance. There were so many people that we had to add a second show that night. And because of who was on stage and who was in the audience, it was the most powerful theater event that I've ever experienced in my life. And just as powerful as this, we took this play and we put it online. And we told people that they could do it for free. Now, this was the early days of the internet. It was before MySpace. It was before YouTube. It was before Facebook and Meetup. There was no such thing as social networking, so we had to bootstrap it. And even bootstrapping it, it became viral. And I think it was one of the most early and successful viral events of the internet age. Because in the next 5 years, 20,000 performances of this play took place in 20,000 different places, and it was the most performed play in America for those 5 years. Now, Bill got a lot of emails and letters from students who performed this play, and some of them who were in it. I'm going to read one to you. Exactly as we got it. All right, you understand. You just don't tell the cops, all right? Thank you so much for helping. I've had a hit list for 4 years, and it's gone now. Thank you, you've just saved many lives. And he signed it, Healed Wounds and Battle Scars. You know, that fact about Bang Bang You're Dead being the most performed play in America for 5 years, you'll be forgiven if you don't know it, because it wasn't in the media. No money changed hands. This was culture as culture, not culture as transaction. Now, I said I was going to unmask 3 lies. First lie is that American culture stinks. It's violent, it's crass, it's too sexual, it's porn. Well, American culture doesn't stink. There is a problem with American culture, but the problem is it's just not good enough. And part of it not being good enough, if one half of the culture war, the real culture war, if one half of the real culture war is to talk about the way we feel about culture, then the other half is how we make it. And part of that is for artists to stand up and be honest when work does not hit the mark of excellence. To be honest about the fact that making culture is about sweat and muscle cramps and late nights and erasing until it is right. Second lie, you have to come from a privileged position to say what good is, to say what excellence is. Well, I'm sorry, with all of my apologies to all the people with advanced degrees in this room, you don't have to be at a privileged seat to say what excellence is. Everybody can do it. With basic questions and very accessible concepts, we can all ask questions of every art that we encounter. We can ask, does it engage me? Does it feel complete? Is it responsible? Is it radiant? Does it give pleasure and transcend? And if you answer those questions authentically, you will not be wrong. Now, the third lie, thank you. The third lie is that the public gets what it wants. That's not true either. The public gets what it's fed. Look, advertising works. Do you really think that movie companies spend $75 million to market one movie in America alone because it doesn't work? That's $75 million. That's half the National Endowment for the Arts annual budget. So of course advertising works, but we are cultural consumers. We can choose to support culture that we care about, even if it isn't supported by a large advertising campaign. Look, I don't think that Americans wanted to get lung cancer by smoking cigarettes. I don't think that we wanted to become diabetic and obese from eating fast food and hamburgers. In the same way, I don't think that Americans want the social malaise and the sense of cultural dysfunction that we want by getting culture that is not as excellent as we deserve. Now, we know that we need to make this change, and we know that it's going to take a generation, so we have to get started now. But the question is, can we get started now? Is there any reason we can? And the answer is yes. There is a reason that uniquely now we can begin. 3 reasons. This is the first reason. There are now 4 million mobile phones in America. 4 billion mobile phones in the world today. To put this in contrast, there are only 1 billion hardwired internet users, but there are 4 billion mobile phone users. By the year 2015, there will be 6 billion mobile devices in the world. That means that virtually everyone will have a mobile device. That means that everyone in the world can communicate with each other about culture and about a discussion about culture. Here's the second reason. New ways of talking about culture and what is excellent are already beginning to emerge. I think that some of the user reviews on Amazon.com surpass some of the things that I read in the pages of The New Yorker. So already a new vocabulary is beginning, and the ability for people from everyday life to express their points of view is taking hold. And the third reason is that because of the first two reasons, because of global interconnection and because a new vocabulary is already developing, artists can start to become an important force and an important class. Here's a secret fact. Artists are already a huge, important class, but artists are for some reason a strangely silent class. According to a study the NEA did 2 years ago, there are 2 million working artists in the United States alone. These are people who declare as their primary source of income their art, everyone from dancers to designers. That's more than all of our active duty military. That is more than all of our doctors. That is more than all of our lawyers. And that study, that 2 million people, does not even count 300,000 people who say that their secondary income is as artists, or 35 million Americans who say that they engage in some creative act on a regular basis, even though they may call it a hobby. And that these studies only look at adults. They don't look at everybody else. They don't look at teens. And when I see teens and people in college uploading movies from their mobile devices to YouTube, they upload 24 hours of content every second. I believe that creative culture is an important driver in Americans' lives. So it's time for us to realize that artists can become a class, and that artists can move from tribes to nations. I know that it's very cool to talk about tribes, but now that we're in the real culture war, we can do some creative nation building. We can declare the creation nation. And if we do that, and if all of us think about that and remember the historical precedents about cultural change, and tell some stories, and unmask the lies, and talk about the reasons why we can do this right now, we can change the way our country feels and thinks about culture. From this to this. Thank you very much.